Although nickel reserves are found in more than 25 countries worldwide, Indonesia tops the list. Currently, Indonesia accounts for 55% of global mine production. The global transition to electric vehicles is driving rapid expansion of Indonesia's nickel industry. But do the benefits outweigh the costs? Let's dive deep into the Indonesian nickel industry. Nickel mining in Indonesia began in 1901 in the Verbeek Mountains of Sulawesi by a Dutch mineralogist. A Canadian geologist from Inco further prospected the existing deposits, and in 1934, exploration efforts from a Dutch mining firm began. Initial production began in 1936 to 1941, with operations being expanded during the Japanese occupation of the Dutch East Indies. After the independence of Indonesia, the American Freeport Sulphur Company attempted to establish operations but failed due to security concerns. NV Perto, a local company, took over operations until it was taken over by the Indonesian government. Following the takeover, the company was restructured by the government as PN Pertambangan Nickel Indonesia in 1961. It was later merged into Aneka Tambang, which began exporting nickel ore to Japan by 1969. The International Nickel Company also began establishing metallurgical operations in the 1970s, with commercial nickel production commencing in 1978. Over a decade, the high value-added share of Indonesia's nickel exports has gone from 8% to 100%. Its mine output has risen ninefold, and it is putting rivals, including nickel miners in Australia, out of business because they cannot begin to match the capital and operating costs of the Indonesian operations. Enabling Indonesia to transform its place in one of the most important new energy industries could be seen as the most significant achievement yet of China's Belt and Road program. President Xi Jinping underlined the strategic importance of Indonesia to China by launching the maritime component of the Belt and Road program in an address to Indonesia's parliament in 2013. The government of former Indonesian President Bambang Yudhoyono resolved in 2009 to raise the country's returns from its raw materials by restricting exports of unprocessed ores, giving miners a 5-year transition period. In the case of nickel, export of the raw ore was banned from 2014, with a grace period provided only if the mining company was investing in processing. By 2020, the ban on nickel ore exports was complete. Before the ban, Indonesia was extracting 71 million tons of nickel ore annually, of which 65 million tons was exported in its raw form. Most of the exports went to China, where it was smelted and used to manufacture stainless steel. Chinese companies led by the privately owned Tsingshan Steel Group responded to the proposed export ban with the construction of smelters in Indonesia. The Belt and Road program helped with the funding of an industrial park where the smelters were located near the nickel mines. While raw nickel ore exports dropped to zero, Indonesia's sales of nickel pig iron and stainless steel soared. While many resource-rich nations, including Australia, aspire to add value to their raw materials, export bans are not permitted under World Trade Organization rules, and in 2019, the European Union launched an action against Indonesia. It said Indonesia's policy was unfairly limiting the access of European steel mills to nickel ore and was effectively subsidizing Indonesia's exports of stainless steel. Some other Western countries, including the United States and the United Kingdom, joined the dispute as third parties backing the EU arguments. While the WTO considered the EU's case, Indonesia's nickel mine production rose exponentially. It jumped from 200,000 tons in 2016 to an estimated 1.8 million tons last year, which accounted for about half the global total. Indonesia's production has doubled in the last 2 years, and processed nickel and stainless steel are now Indonesia's biggest exports. The surge in Indonesia's exports of processed nickel and stainless steel has sent nickel prices plummeting from $50,000 US a ton in March 2022 to $16,100 now. China's Tsingshan Holdings, a family-owned business led by a husband and wife team, revolutionized the manufacture of stainless steel by using an intermediate product, nickel pig iron, to feed the steel mills rather than higher-cost pure nickel metal. They used a rotary electric kiln furnace to provide a continuous flow to the stainless steel mill. Applying this technology to Indonesia's nickel slashed the cost to such an extent that its Chinese state-owned competitor Taiyuan Iron and Steel sought and won anti-dumping protection in the Chinese market. Chinese resource groups have also brought new efficiencies to the manufacture of battery-grade nickel, which demands greater purity than needed for stainless steel. 3 Chinese businesses, including Tsingshan, have built Indonesian plants to manufacture battery-grade nickel for under $1.5 billion each. The plants took only 3 years to build and 12 months to reach full capacity. By comparison, the Ravensthorpe plant in Western Australia with a similar output cost $2.2 billion and took 9 years to build and reach production capacity. The Goro plant in New Caledonia cost $5.9 billion and took 17 years to reach capacity. The energy and resources consulting firm Wood Mackenzie estimates that the capital costs of Indonesia's new plants are $35,000 per annual ton of nickel produced, compared with more than $100,000 at Western plants. In the brutal logic of commodity markets, it is the highest cost producers that go out of business first in an oversupplied market. Nickel used in EV batteries to achieve better performance and longer range at lower weights than other battery types is a key resource in the global transition to EVs. The International Energy Agency predicts global demand for the metal will grow at least 65% by 2030, and EVs and battery storage are set to take over from stainless steel as the largest end user of nickel by 2040. The Electric Vehicle Council estimated 40% of EVs sold in Australia this year had a battery with a nickel-based chemistry. Tesla, which sells more electric cars in Australia than any other manufacturer, uses Indonesian nickel via Chinese companies Huayu Cobalt and CNGR Advanced Material. The company has also been in discussions to establish its own battery manufacturing plant in the country. Battery makers including South Korea's LG Energy Solution and car makers including Ford, Toyota, and Hyundai have announced billions of dollars worth of investments in Indonesia-based nickel processing plants to secure supplies of the metal as they ramp up electric vehicle production. But as the nickel industry has grown, so too have concerns about its environmental and social impacts. Nickel mining in the area is a significant driver of deforestation and biodiversity loss. At least 5,331 hectares of tropical forests have been cut within nickel mining concessions on Halmahera, totaling a loss of approximately 2.04 metric tons of greenhouse gases previously stored as carbon in those forests. Communities living in central and eastern Halmahera have long depended on natural resources to sustain themselves and their families as artisanal fisher folks, farmers, sago makers, and hunters. The nickel industry's destruction of forests, acquisition of farmland, degradation of freshwater resources, and harm to fisheries has made it difficult, if not impossible, to continue traditional ways of life. By adopting sustainable practices and strategic planning, Indonesia can navigate these challenges and emerge as a model for responsible resource management in the 21st century. Currently, China has several large projects with fantastic values in Indonesia. According to Minister of Investment Bahlil Lahadalia, China had invested $3 billion in Indonesia in 2022. Chinese investment value in 2022 is the highest compared to other countries valued at $3 billion, such as Singapore with $2.7 billion, Hong Kong with $1.6 billion, Malaysia with $1.1 billion, and the United States with $0.9 billion. Shandong Nanshan, a major Chinese company, is expanding its aluminum smelting complex worth $6 billion billion, which is the largest foreign investment in Indonesia. In the IMIP area, China has invested $1.63 billion for the development of the area. With Tsingshan Group, DeLong Group, and PT Indonesia Morowali Industrial Park signed the cooperation, collaborating to build a carbon steel factory with a capacity of 3.5 million tons with an investment of $980 million. In the short term, the China-Indonesia Economic Partnership has proven beneficial not just for Indonesia's nickel sector, but also in securing intra-regional connectivity. The nickel industry has helped deliver rapid growth for Indonesia's economy, the largest in Southeast Asia. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more updates.